I'll be back. hello, Zoom people. We are here now. So all these computers should have SPSS on them working now. So go ahead and log in. And then folks who are at home, if you want to follow along, you can. I'm going to go ahead and share screen and show you how you can download it yourself. Hello, hello. So find a computer, log in. In theory, they should be working. All right. There we go. So folks at home, if you are on a computer instead of on your phone, you can follow this link. So if you go to our course page and you go to SPSS, then you can download the home version if you click this link. So if you want to follow along at home, you will be able to. And it gives you full instructions, and just make sure you're following the one for the type of computer you have, because the Mac one is pretty different. Once we're in it, it works the same, but the downloading instructions are slightly different. Because why is anything easy? And we're just gonna give it a minute for everybody who's here to let their computers very slowly warm up. That's how we roll here at Virginia Wesleyan. I will be giving out exam 2 tonight. So those of you who are having to be on Zoom, you can shoot me an email and I can email it to you. What's that? Oh no! I mean, you can use it on your computer if you want to download it. It'll probably be faster, honestly. Do you need those? Once people do get to Blackboard and you click on that SPSS, there's a file called assessmentsampledata.save.sav. So you could click on that and it'll download it. And when you open that, it'll open SPSS. And then you're not having to open SPSS like 3 times. Yeah, feel free to, like, if you have your laptop and you just feel like that's going to be easier, feel free to use that as well. And the nice thing is, you know, if now or later you put it on your laptop, you're not restricted to working on your group project in the computer lab. What is this? Oh, yeah, they're switching it. So like it's just the parents. So you're gonna have to download the app on your phone or like an iPad or something like that. So you have to get the app and basically it's just an alternate. I was gonna say I would put it on your phone because that way wherever you are, you'll be able to sign in. I'm like now terrified of losing my phone because I'm like, how will I be able to log into anything?
Yeah, I find it.
Yeah.
I think there should be like an email method too.
Yeah, that would be good.
You said something different for that.
Yeah, basically it's just very slightly, not once we get to that sheet, just like the actual downloading of the program.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there are separate instructions when you click on that link for Mac versus PC. What's that?
No, you should download the app.
Oh, yeah, and then if you scroll to the bottom, there's where you can download it. No, but the bathrooms are right across the hall if you want to go actually wash your hands. Yeah, we used to have hand sanitizer in all the classrooms, and I guess they let that lapse. Also, ew. Someone's mouse was sticky, so that's lovely. So it's under, there's just a tab called SPSS on the left-hand side. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom, that's where you can find where to download it. And hopefully the Wi-Fi will cooperate because the Wi-Fi has been not so great in here. Yep. So yeah, you have a Mac, so just open the Mac folder. Did you try just like opening the folder, just double clicking it? There you go. No, it's all good. I know that computers, even our good ones, are finicky. So mine won't really hold charge anymore. So I'm just like connected to an outlet wherever I go. That's great. I'll go back to our course page. I really wish that this Google Chrome page would stop taking over the computer. That would be great. Okay. So again, folks at home who might be following along, whether live or later on, you're going to go to the assessment sample data file, click it, and download it. And then that will open SPSS for you. It may give you some weird message about it being in Unicode, quote unquote. It's just because it was created in an older version of SPSS. Just click yes or okay, and you'll be good. All right, anyone else? I'm going to be floating around, so if you don't see me on screen, that's why. Anyone else need me right now?
Mine says like it's in my tongue.
Oh, have you installed it on there yet? No. Okay, so you got to install this before you open it up.
Install this?
Yep. Because only SPSS can open an SPSS file.
Got it.
If I sit on a chair, I won't be such a hobbit. Yeah, that's not too bad. Yeah, it was funny because I texted the rest of the department last week and I was like, oh my gosh, do you believe SPSS doesn't work in the lab? And Dr. Ariel was like, I teach in there, but everybody uses their own laptops, so we just never noticed. Fair, okay. And for those who, again, are either doing this from home or you are watching this later and want to know how to do it, if you click on this SPSS instructions, that's the same handout I gave everybody who's in class. So you can follow along that way. There's also a PowerPoint. It's been a really long time since I looked at this PowerPoint, so I don't know how accurate it is. Follow the video instead. So while everybody's doing that, I'll go ahead and review where we are on the syllabus. So today, if I can get there we go, is the 28th. And once we get through the SPSS, we're going to talk about educational assessments. So we'll go back to the other classroom for that. So folks on Zoom, you'll lose me for like 5 minutes, but then I'll come back, I promise. And then there is an in-class activity that hopefully we'll have time to get to, where you all will take some sample GRE and questions, and then I can send those via the link on Zoom as well. Yeah, next week we'll talk about intelligence and neuropsych assessments, which is one of my faves. I did a lot of those when I was in grad school. And next week exam 2 is due. And then we have fall break. You are going to be turning in your group project IRB to me during fall break. And then the week we get back, the 19th, you have a Blackboard assignment that's due where you take a career test and write about your reaction to it. Then we'll do personality assessments, and that'll bring us up to exam 3. Alrighty. How are folks doing? Is anybody able to get the file open yet?
I clicked on this. I think this.
That looks promising.
I'm on like the Virgin Lesson website. It says to download it, start the blank, and then it's time to like click on start, but it's just.
Let me take a look.
Okay. So, yeah, click the link. You're probably there. And it just says click to start all programs. Go back.
And try clicking on the thing. There we go. Yeah. So now you should be able to open that. Yep. Sure. Yeah, that's the instructions. So yeah, what you gotta do is download that other document. And it should be behind our firewall, so it should not eat your computers. I mean, we do have much better security after the ransomware virus in 2019. I do have to say that. So. The other virus, as faculty refer to it. And so while you're waiting for various files to download, I'm just going to go ahead and familiarize you all with SPSS. So if you look up on the screens, it's going to show it. And so basically SPSS is a fancy version of Excel. It's an Excel that will do stuff for you without you having to program it through a little formula. And so where it'll probably open is your data view. And this is everything that this particular data set had. Let me look real quick. If you click down here, so there's a tab in the lower left-hand corner, kind of like there would be in Excel for the different sheets. And there's one that says variable view. And here's where you really differ from Excel. This has all the information you need about your variables. So it has, you know, a label for each. And then if you click on it, then this is why you can tell this is old, because I collected this when we were VWC. So rock on. And if you click on the labels, it'll tell you what each value means. I believe this is something we collected looking at like Facebook usage with these two groups. And so just to start familiarizing you with the type of variables we can have. So something like college or gender is going to be one of those nominal variables where just the number means a label. It doesn't mean, like, again, that you have more gender if you're male, right? You can have continuous variables like weight and height. You can have questionnaires. So like all these items that say PACS are from the, if I expand this, you'll be able to see it, physical appearance comparison scale. So these are all the items that were on that scale, and they're all on this same Likert scale. And so, you know, a lot of people say this is actually ordinal. We tend to just call it a scale in SPSS. So this was determined by the questionnaire I gave, which was pre-existing, and I just put those in. Then we have a couple other questionnaires, and for some reason, one of these doesn't have the labels, so I'll just copy paste it. This is about positive body image, feeling good about your body. I had a figure rating where I gave them images of different shapes of bodies, and they said which one looks most like your current body, which one looks like what you want to look like, current and ideal. And then I had a questionnaire about body checking, which is the idea of checking to see if your thighs touch when you sit down, if you walk by any reflective surface, checking out your appearance, that type of thing. There is a measure of depression, the CESD, and then you'll see there's some stuff I have already calculated. So I'm just going to come around and see where everybody is. And when we get to the point where everybody has the doc open, then we'll go ahead and start walking through how you do stuff with it. Basically, when you're in data view, you see all the data as if you entered it into an Excel file. And the top column is basically where you'd put your header in Excel. But here it's locked because it corresponds to your variable view, which again, just really helpful because you can have a lot more information. All right, so we got a couple open. Woohoo! They didn't update it in there. So is that the one that it's oh, okay. Sorry. Let me poke around the website and see if they have an updated key somewhere. Give me just a sec. Things that make our jobs hard that really shouldn't. Here we go. So I'm just going to check out the VW website and look at tech and see if we can sort it out. Search. Probably what we want is the yeah. This will let us look at the directory. And we want there we go. The Melbourne Center for Technology. There we go. Oh, does your number work? Oh, is that just your phone number? Okay. No, we're looking for the key code for it. But thank you for sharing that. All right. So somewhere over here, they should have, yeah, here we go. Software, video conferencing, and printing. SPSS right there. Okay, so there's a new one now. I'm going back to Blackboard and I'm going to update this. Oops, that's not going to help.
Smartphone phone for the product authorization. So it's like authorized user license or concurrent user license.
So you should be the one where you have like a key to do it, but yeah. So there's a code. All right. So for those of you whose code wasn't working, if you go to Blackboard now, there's the link for the version 29. And that should have the correct key and such. And it'll look very similar with a folder, but should have the updated key. Yeah, this one's good through December. So again, folks following along at home, if you want to try that as well, you could. And the funny thing is, I really think I updated that link last week, which means that they've updated that link in the last week. So, you know. I love that they're supporting your learning. You have to use the 29. I'm so sorry. So if you just go to the same place on Blackboard, I linked the new one now. Once we start playing with SPSS, it doesn't actually take that long. It's just a matter of, again, how much is the technology going to be annoying? Right, because you're probably trying to put the 29 code into the 27 version. You got to download the 29. Yeah. Again, sorry. I got that link from them last week, which means they hadn't updated it in like 2 years, which is great. And we'll take like another 5-ish, 10-ish minutes here. And then if we're all still having problems, what I'll have you do is just sort of like come to the people who actually have it working and kind of look over their shoulders. But it's better if you all can practice yourselves. So. Yeah, if you're just doing it on the main computer, the SPSS should be working in theory if you just download the file from Blackboard.
hearing anything through you? Definitely slowly because the Wi-Fi sucks. Yeah, Dr. Ariel, whose office is across the hall, he and I talked about how both of us go home to get work done because the internet is so slow. We have a hard time getting anything done here, which is unfortunate. I'm gonna crack open this door, see if we can get some airflow. It's really stuffy in here. Oh, I've already pressed it. Alrighty. What is like progress on the download for people? Should we do that?
It says but that
yeah. Okay. So why don't we have you all sort of pair up or group around people who do have it, or if you're comfortable just watching it on the screen, I'm going to walk through everything. And then if people get it to download, we can go through stuff again later. So let me go ahead and do a different share for our Zoom folks. Do share. I'm just going to share the whole screen so that you'll be able to see everything that we're doing. Okay, just minimize that. Okay, so again, take a minute and walk you through this again. So again, across the top are the names of all your variables. And each of these corresponds to one item on a questionnaire. So like PAX 1 would be item 1 of this questionnaire. PAX 2 is item 2 of that questionnaire. And so, you know, when you all do this, you will have however many items from each. Let's say each questionnaire you're giving is 3 items or 10 items, plus you're giving, I don't know, 5 demographic questions. So you'll be entering 35 items worth of data for each person. Okay, and again, if we go over to variable view, it tells us more about what these various things are. So again, this is a scale called the Physical Appearance Comparison Scale. As it sounds like, it's about comparing your physical appearance to other people. Shocker, I know. Sometimes these things are helpful and named, right? And then, you know, again, we have these various other questionnaires. Okay, so it doesn't matter if you're in data view or variable view. What you can do is, let's go over some basic statistics. So if you go up to Analyze on your top menu here, and that gives you lots of different options. And let's do some frequencies first. You go to Analyze Descriptive Statistics, and then frequencies is your first thing up there. So Analyze Descriptive Statistics, frequencies. And when you click that, it'll open this little window for you. And let's do this with age. Let's see what our age distribution was. So there's a couple ways you can get the variable you want to work with. You can double click it and it'll go over into that variables column. Or when it's over on the left-hand side, you can just click the arrow and it'll bring it over as long as you have age selected. Okay. And then what's really nice is that once we've got that, that's the variable we want to look at. We just hit OK. And now SPSS has done all the calculation for us in terms of counting how many people were of that each age, right? So you can see this was mostly a college sample. And so we have a lot sort of around the 18 to 22 range. And then we had a few like continuing at adults as well. Alrighty, so that's how you do a frequency. And this window that pops up with your results is called the output window. And it's basically like your notebook of all the calculations you're doing. So leave that open as you work through things. And you can go to Analyze from your output window too. So you don't even have to flip back to your other window. So let's do mean and standard deviation, right? We know this isn't too hard to calculate by hand, but there's 220 people in this data set. So we don't want to sit there and add all those up and divide by 220, right? So what we could do is go to descriptive statistics and then descriptives. So analyze, descriptive statistics, descriptives, and then you click that. And again, let's use age. So again, you can either double click or use that arrow to get it over to the window that says it's one of the variables we're going to work with. And then you can hit OK. And what it will do is give you not only your mean and standard deviation, but also your minimum and maximum age. So the mean age, maybe not surprisingly, once we looked at the frequencies for age, right, was almost 20, 19.9. And we had a standard deviation of a little over 3.5. So every variable that you wanted this on, you could get them really quickly, right? I want a mean and standard deviation on age. I want a mean and standard deviation on my whole questionnaire. Boom, you get them this quickly. And this is why, as much as we're having an annoying time with the tech right now, once it starts working, it is so much faster, even for the like 30 people you're going to collect from, to have SPSS do it. All right, so one of the things you're going to have to do is, as I mentioned, you're going to put in, and depending on how you collect your data, you're going to do this a little differently, right? So if you set up something like a Google form or you use SONA's questionnaire capacity, you're going to be able to download your data and convert it into SPSS, and it'll just kind of be there for you. You'll just have to rename the variables. If you're going to give out paper copies, you'll have to hand put in for everybody, each individual item. And that sounds daunting, but it honestly, for 30 people, wouldn't take you that long. So you can go either way. So one of the things that might happen, though, and in fact will happen for this class, is you've got these various items that make up a scale, and we want to look at the whole scale, right? We don't want to just look at single items. That's not going to tell us that much information. And we did all that talk about reliability and validity and how they go up when there's more items, right? So we want to make sure we're including all that. One of the things you need to check with the measures you're using that already exist is whether any of the items are reverse coded. And wherever you find that questionnaire, it will tell you in pretty easy ways. Often there's an R next to it or a star that indicates that item is reverse coded. If you are creating your own questionnaire, you might want to think about, do I want to have an item or two reverse coded? And all that means is, like, for the physical appearance comparison scale we're going to be looking at here, it has 5 items. 4 of those items say, I compare myself a lot to other people, basically. And there's 1 item that says, I don't really compare myself at all to other people. And the reason you do that is to try to, like, disguise which direction you're asking about, basically. Even though people figure it out pretty quickly. Y'all are smart, right?
So
yeah.
Is it beneficial to have, like...
So it can be, yeah. So if you all want to do that, as long as you indicate for yourself which ones are reverse codes, you know, later. Yeah, I mean, people do it because it does sort of mix stuff up for a little bit for people. It also can help you know whether people are paying attention when they're taking it, right? Because if they give you all 5s and like some of them should be 1s, if that's true, then you kind of know, like, this person didn't really pay attention. So yeah, you guys don't have to, but as you're creating your questionnaires, if you want to throw in a reverse item or 3, you can. So the nice thing is, so I've had people, not even just in this class, in other classes, like when they do their Capstone 480 project, be like, okay, I got to go through and like hand recode them. No, don't do that to yourself. It will do it for you. So if you go to transform across the top, it's like the 5th one over, then you're going to go recode into different variables. You always want to recode into a different variable because if you record into the same variable, it overwrites your data. And if you messed anything up in the recode, now, unless you have a previous version saved, you've lost your data and you've got to like go back and rehand enter it. So don't do that to yourself. Always go into different variables. SPSS doesn't care how many variables you have. It will let you have thousands of variables. So creating another one won't be that big of a deal. So I know, just because I've used this questionnaire a lot, and in fact, I messed this up the first time I used it because I was like, why are these scores so weird? And I looked, I was like, oh, there's a reverse code item. Okay, so I know that the PAX4 item is coded in the opposite direction of the other one. So again, same thing. I can double click it over, or I could have used the arrow. Now what you're going to do on the right here is tell it what you want to name it. Okay, so in this, I'm just going to call it PAX4R. That's a lot of what I do. I just call it R for recode. If you want to give yourself a little label in case you forget it, you could do that. You don't have to. And you click change. And now that's saying, okay, so you want me to take the data that's in the PAX4 and put it in this new variable we're creating, the PAX4R. So then you click on old and new variables. And what we're going to do is we're going to tell SPSS how to do this. I know that the PAX goes from 1 to 5 on its Likert scale. This is something that you would look at the questionnaires that you used and be like, oh, this one's 1 to 4, this one's 1 to 7, right? So what you're going to do is tell it 1 is now equal to 5. So if someone answered a 1, make it a 5 in the new variable. Then you tell it 2 is now equal to 3. Nope, should be 4. I was like, wait a second. The heat is getting to me. Okay, 2 is now equal to 4. Now, SPSS doesn't know what you want it to do unless you tell it. So you've got to tell it that 3 is going to stay 3. It's a smart program, but it can't read minds. It doesn't have AI yet. All right, so maybe I don't want it to. So then you say 4 is 2. You have to tell it the opposite as well. And that 5 will now become 1. And you have to add each one every time. And so now 1 should be 5, 2 should be 4, 3 should be 3, 4 should be 2, and 5 should be 1. And then you hit continue when you got all that. And then it'll bring you back to this window and you just hit OK. OK is where you tell it, hey, do this. All right, and so it's not really going to show anything in our output document because that's not where we told it to do something, right? So you're going to go back to your data file. And if you scroll down to the bottom of variable view, you should have a new variable called PAX4. And then if you go to data view and you scroll all the way to the right, now you'll have that new variable PAX4 with everybody's data in it. And again, we didn't have to go through and do that manually for 220 people. SPSS did it like that for us. Again, when it works, SPSS is wonderful. When it doesn't, not so much. Okay, so go ahead and flip the paper over. We are on the back. We are making progress. All righty. So now, okay, we've got our PAX4 recoded. We know the other 4 PAX items are in the right direction. Now we want to actually create the total score. This is another thing where you get to decide with your questionnaire and you want to look at the other questionnaires. How are you adding it up? Most of them will be one of 2 things, either just a straight sum of all the items or an average score. Okay. And so what you're going to do, get this get out of the way, is go to, excuse me, geez, is go to transform again. And this time you're going 1 down and you're just going to compute variable. So transform, compute variable. All right. Then you're going to give your target variable a name, just like you gave your recoded variable a name before. Let's see, I said to call it PAX total. I often call my variables very obvious things so that it's not hard for me to know what it is, right? All right, and so then what you'll do is you want to put each of those variables over. So PAX1 has the full title, but then says PAX1 in parentheses. So again, I can either use that arrow or I can double click. And we want to put a plus sign in between PAX2 plus PAX3. Oh, when we get to PAX4, we just spent all that time recoding it. So we want to make sure we get down to the bottom and get that recoded one we got instead of using the one that just says PAX4. And then we go back up, hit another plus sign, and we get PAX5. So we're adding PAX1 plus PAX2 plus PAX3 plus PAX4R plus PAX5. So once you've got all that in, you hit OK. And again, this isn't going to tell you anything. You go back to your data window, and now we have a PACS total variable. And this has the sum of people's scores on the PACS. And you'll see there are 5 items. It goes from 1 to 5. So there's someone who scored a 5, right? That's going to be your minimum. And it doesn't look like anyone scored a 25, but we do have people in the 20s, right? So we have quite a lot of variability. All right, and so when you have your data set with the questionnaire you're going to create, and then the 2 other questionnaires that already exist, you'll do this for each of those to add them up. Alrighty, so now we get to, I don't know if you all will think it's fun. I think it's kind of fun. Some of the stuff that we've been talking about in class, right? So how do we calculate alpha? You go to Analyze, and then you're going to go down here pretty far on the list to where it says Scale, because we're analyzing an overall scale. We're not analyzing one item. And then we're just going to click on Reliability Analysis. So Analyze Scale Reliability Analysis. Okay. And now what you're going to do is we're going to use the PACS as an example. Again, it's really nice because it only has 4 items, or 5 items rather. So it's fast to do this, right? Got to make sure we go down and get that recoded one again. Otherwise, our internal consistency will be all out of whack. And then we're going to add, so making sure we have PACS 1, PACS 2, PACS 3, PACS 4, and PACS 5. And then if you click on Statistics on the side, you can get a whole bunch of different things. And so we want to do descriptives for the item, descriptives for the whole scale, and then descriptives for the scale if that item is deleted. Okay, so then if we hit continue, and then we hit OK, it has run an alpha for us. And this is not a great scale, to be perfectly honest. It's been a little frustrating working with it. I mean, that's an acceptable level of alpha, but it'd be really nice if it was higher, right? And then you can see it gives you the mean and standard deviation for each of those 4 items. And then it looks at them overall as well. What would the Cronbach's alpha be if it was deleted? And really interestingly, if you got rid of that recoded item, even though it's recoded, your reliability would go up to more of the good level. So this is something interesting to look at, especially with the scale you create, right? Are there an item or 2 that if you got rid of them, your alpha would go up? And let me tell you, you're going to have some crazy alphas. Every once in a while, people make awesome scales that get like in the 0.8 ranges in this class, but a lot of people get crazy alphas. So it's like 0.5 or 0.3, right? And that's okay. I'm not grading you on how well your alpha, how good your alpha is. I'm grading you on, did you run an alpha, basically. So it doesn't matter how good your scale is, just that you go through this process. All right, just a couple more things, and then we're actually done with the lesson part, and then you have a little activity to do. So we're going to learn about how you're going to test validity for your group project. So you're going to go to Analyze, and this time we're going to run correlations. So you're going to go down to where it says Correlate. And then there's 2 that say bivariate. You want the one that just says bivariate. So it's the second one down. So Analyze, Correlate, bivariate. Alrighty, so now we're going to scroll all the way down to our list of variables and get that PACS total that we spent so much time adding up, right? And then I have already added up some other stuff in this for you. So scroll up a little bit and you'll see the body appreciation scale. And if you look, if you hover over, it'll say BAS full scale, and go ahead and put that in. So this is comparing it to that body appreciation scale, a measure of body satisfaction. If you're comparing your physical appearance a lot, you're probably going to be low in body satisfaction, right? And in fact, that's what we found. So it's a negative correlation, but in this case, that makes sense, right? I'm comparing my body a lot, so my score on body appreciation or feeling good about my body is lower, and it's significant. So this is evidence for convergent validity for this scale about appearance comparison. now we also want to look at divergent validity. And so same thing, analyze and correlate. Second one down, bivariate. And so keep the packs in there, but get rid of the body appreciation scale. And scroll down almost to the bottom and you'll see full scale CESD-FS. This is the Center for Epidemiological Studies Depression Scale. In theory, a measure of body comparison shouldn't be as highly related to depression as it is to your body image, right? So once you have those two in, hit OK. And here we see it is still a related, but it's a much smaller R, right? It's 0.22 instead of 0.4. So yeah, we got some evidence for some divergent validity, right? So essentially, these are the steps you're going to have to take for your project once you get your data in SPSS. So again, fully recognizing that not everybody has SPSS working on their computer, go ahead and pair up or group up to work on this. There's just a very brief assignment. We're going to run some of the same stuff with different variables. And folks at home, I believe this is on Blackboard, but I'll share it in the Zoom chat as well. And then once I do that, I'll float around in case people are having problems. Yeah. Okay, let me come over real quick. All right, sign in. Okay, so hit close, and then what you can do is just go to Blackboard and download that file, and then when you open it, it'll just open the right version of SPSS for you. So go to Blackboard for the file you were using just now. Because that's also the same file you're going to use for your homework. Or not really homework, in-class assignment. Great. Got it. Okay. All right, so Zoom folks, I'm now going to put this in the chat for you. And it will open a copy of it. And I'm also going to check and make sure it is on Blackboard where it's supposed to be. It's not, so I'll go ahead and get it posted. Uh-huh.
And then it's for me to log in to IBM.
Oh, that's
So I put in the license key.
It was, sorry, it's the one that we created. So the one all the way down to the bottom.
Okay. So, I just took my official file, came here, and I opened it. Off that, and then I picked launch.
Launch was License Wizard, and then you'd be able to put in your key. Yep. And so it'll walk you through how to license it. The good news is someone did give it to download, so it is possible.
Once you go through the hassle of getting it open, it makes it easier.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just, again, it shouldn't be this much of a hassle. This is entirely to do, unfortunately, with computer services not maintaining these computers the way they should. Working, and it is, yay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, no problem. I'll be right over. I think I screwed this up, but that's okay. I'll make it work. Yeah, then you just check those three. Yep. That's all you and then you just need to make sure you put in all the because we can't run it on one of them. Okay. Yeah, assessment sample data. That's way too hard. And later in the semester, when you have your data, like I'm going to be here in the room with you to help you. I'm not going to leave you high and dry, I promise. Oh, if you're all done, then you all can take your break, and then we'll come back into the classroom sometime around 7. We'll do our lecture and then do the activities. Yes, yeah, give me your assignments because you will get points for them. And then once you're done with it, you can take your break.
We're meeting back in the original.
We're going to be back in the other room. Thank God. I know it's cold in there, but that's better than this sweating. So. And folks on Zoom, I am going to close the Zoom. You all can stay on. I'll reopen it in the other room. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry.
Just another minute or two. I think we got a couple people who are back. Oh, enjoy the cool. All right, it's 7:20, so we'll get started. We have a shortest lecture tonight, and then there is a quick assignment. And this is the first in the series of tests that you'll be taking to exchange with your partner. It kind of works out that this one you just do on your own, since we're missing a lot of people tonight. So if we could figure out the partners, hopefully starting next week, more people will be able to be here. So we're going to be talking about assessments of educational ability. So these are the tests that would be given in school settings most of the time. And now one thing, it was interesting, I was just talking to one of my colleagues about this today, that a lot of people don't realize is if you are a school psychologist, not a school counselor or guidance counselor or anything like that, but a school psychologist, 90+% of your job is actually giving these assessments every day. So you are testing for things like learning disabilities, educational achievement, things along those lines. And I am going to hide the Zoom captions because the other ones will come underneath and be a lot easier to read. All right, so assessments of educational ability. The purposes here are many, as you can see, to determine basically how well a student is learning, or if they need to be learning a different way, basically, to assess class, grades, school systems, or states. So some of what we're going to talk about are things that are on the par with like SLOs, basically. To detect learning problems is a lot of, again, what the school psychologist is doing to identify giftedness, to see if a child is ready to move to the next grade level, to assess teacher effectiveness for placement in college. So SAT, ACT that we talked about previously, or for graduate or professional school. So things like the GMAT, the GRE, the LSAT, things along those lines. And then determine mastery of knowledge for professional advanced degrees or licensure. So for example, I chose never to get licensed just because I knew I'd be teaching and doing research. If I had, there was a test called the EPPP that I would have had to take, that anyone who's going to be licensed as a clinical psychologist nationwide takes the same test. So this is in your book as well, if you have a hard time reading it on the screen, but this is talking about the various types of tests of educational ability. So in general, if we're assessing ability, we're asking, what can you do? Okay, not how smart are you, or are you a good person, right? Are you crazy? We're just asking, what are you capable of doing? So there's achievement testing, and that's what we've learned. And those can be survey batteries, they can be diagnostic, or they can be readiness tests. And we'll go over each of these in more detail. But then there's also aptitude testing. And again, this is a lot of what the psychologist would be doing, is looking at aptitude testing, looking at things like cognitive ability, intellectual and cognitive functioning, special aptitudes, multiple aptitudes, and then what we'll get into next week, which is intelligence testing and fuller neuropsychological assessment to see if there's something actually going wrong in the brain, and if so, what functions is it affecting? And so these are definitions for each of these categories. So the survey batteries measure broad content areas. These again are like the SLOs, or just achievement tests you've taken throughout elementary, middle school, high school. They're often used to assess progress in school, or how is the school doing. The diagnostic tests are assessing problem areas of learning, like learning differences. And the readiness tests measure readiness for moving ahead in school. Often these are readiness to enter first grade in particular. Cognitive abilities tests are often based on what you have learned in school, and will measure broad ranges of cognitive ability. And these are the tests that often are used to make predictions. Will you be successful in school or graduate school? So we've mentioned No Child Left Behind before. It covers over the assessment process. So this Bush era act was mandated by the federal government and said that states must show adequate yearly progress is being made towards all students achieving at the state specified academic standards. So they've got to be making this adequate yearly progress for all students to achieve at this state level. And states have to identify a test to show this is happening. So these are often, again, your SLOs, graduation tests, things along those lines. There's a box in your book that has a nice description of this that you can review when you review the chapter. So why do we give these? They can be helpful, actually. They can help a student, their parents, and their teachers identify strengths and weaknesses. You get reports at different levels. So like individual reports, but also reports for the whole classroom, reports for the whole school, reports for the whole school system, right? Or school district. So this can help teachers, principals, administrators, or the public see how students are doing at these levels. And again, based on No Child Left Behind, these are generally used to show success towards that adequate yearly progress. With who?
Some other survey battery testing here, the National Assessment of Educational Programs. Yes, that's NAEP, not sure. Not sure how they say it, or if they just say NAEP. This one is not used for No Child Left Behind. This is used to compare states to each other, not states to their individual standards. This is sometimes called the National Report Card, and you'll see this reported sometimes where they'll talk about like, Alabama has the 3rd lowest scores on math in the country. Sorry, I'm thinking on Alabama. It's just like a state that came to mind that unfortunately often is low on some of these. And all states are required to participate every 2 years on math and reading. And there are other subjects, but they don't have to give them, but some people will choose to. And this happens at the 4th and 8th grade level. And again, there's a figure in your book that kind of walks through this a little more, but basically it's like the federal government says you have to give this to your 4th graders or your 8th graders so that we compare across all the states. There are a whole bunch of these things, and some of these are national, and some of them are state specific. Like, I'm not going to remember what it was called, but I remember there was a Michigan specific one that I took, I think, my junior year of college, and if you did well on it, you could get a scholarship. It wasn't much, it was $1,000, but $1,000 is still a decent amount, right? That you could apply when you go to college. So one example they're giving here is the STAT-10, or the Stanford Achievement Test. This one started way back in 1923, and it has a whole bunch of different things you can get. Individual profile sheets, class grouping sheets, grade grouping sheets, school system grouping sheets. So similar to some of the other ones we've been talking about. That does have pretty good internal consistency. So 0.8s to 0.9s, that's good, right? That's the range we want to be in. And that's for the multiple choice test. There are open-ended sections. Those, their reliability is not so high. Those, it's the mid 0.50 range to the 0.80 range, right? So, but they do have good validity. Sound content, criterion, and construction validity, it's a good test. It's measuring what it says it's measuring. And in the multiple choice sections, pretty reliably. The Iowa Test of Basic Skills, or the ITBS, dates back to 1935, and it's elementary through middle school, K through 8. And there's subtests that vary depending on the grade level. Things like language, reading, vocab, listening, word analysis, math, social studies, science, and then also sources of information, which is like, do you know how to use a map? Do you know how to use a dictionary? Things along those lines. There's evidence here of content validity, and the reliability is the middle 0.80s to the low 0.90s. So again, pretty darn good. And it correlates well with some of the other measures that are more intensive that we'll talk about later in this lecture. So that's also a good indicator. The MAT, or the Metropolitan Achievement Test, was first published back in the 30s. K through 12. Subjects here include reading, language arts, math, science, and social studies. There's multiple choice and open-ended items. The open-ended items are scored on 0 to 3. There is some criticism here. They argue that the data, because of how it was originally validated, is way too heavily for rural classrooms. And so it underrepresents urban classrooms, which means it underrepresents racial and ethnic minorities. Right, and we know that that's problematic from some of our other stuff we've talked about. It does have good reliability and validity. All right, so those were all sort of those survey batteries, those things you sit down with and they're a big packet and you fill out the Scantron bubbles, right? That's what those were. Next, we're going to start talking about diagnostic testing, which is used by usually, again, a school psychologist to work with individual students to see how we can help them succeed. So it's used to assess problems in learning. And there's a couple different laws here, PL 94-142 and IDEA have made these really crucial. So again, just reminding us, because it's been a couple of weeks since we talked about them, that these laws say that if you are between the ages of 3 and 21 and you're suspected of having a disability that interferes with your learning, you have the right to be tested, and not only tested at the school system's expense. So your parents don't have to pay for it. And then these are used to develop, the results of these are used to develop that individualized education plan. Students with a disability have the right to an education within the least restrictive environment. And this is really important. For a while, they would take anyone with a learning disability and just throw them in special ed. And so you would have kids from like low functioning autism to people who were pretty high functioning and just happen to have dyslexia, all in the same classroom. And so now these laws say you got to give them accommodations so they can be in the class with their peers. That least restrictive environment. All right, so there's a host of different diagnostic tests. The RAT, or the Wide Range Achievement Test, is probably my fave. I learned to give this in grad school. I believe I learned on the RAT 3 when I originally made these notes when I first started teaching this class in the early 2010s. It was the RAT 4, and now as you can see, it's the RAT 5, so they're always updating yet. This is a screening test for learning problems. You do this first, and then you would go in and do more intensive testing in the areas where we're concerned about. It assesses basic reading, spelling, math skills, and sentence comprehension. And it attempts, with the exception of sentence comprehension section, it attempts to eliminate the effects of like understanding what a person's saying or understanding what you're reading. So the individual is asked to read or pronounce words, spell words, do some math problems, and then provide a missing word or words to simple sentences. And so I still have my photocopy of the RAT 3 reading, and you just hand the people the sheets. And here is where I get to start digging into. We have a delightful battery of things here of tests that various people have donated to us over the years. And I'm realizing this is a RAT case, but this is a Wyatt in there, which is hilarious. Okay, well, I can talk about the Wyatt when we get, but I have the RAT reading, I can do that. But so my predecessor, who was the clinical person, collected older tests, and so I have some from them. And then Keith Moore, who's our VP for whatever his title is now. They keep changing it. Student life, campus life, I don't know. But his wife is a school psychologist for Chesapeake. And they were getting rid of old versions of tests, and they donated a bunch of them to us. So I'm able to show you all some stuff from that. But I would hand this to the student or the testee, and they would just read as far as they can. And it starts with pretty simple words like cat, spell, bulk, and then they purposely get harder as you go up. There are 42 words. The second to last one is disingenuous, right? So things that are harder to sound out. Really fun fact about this. This is not what we typically use this for, but being able to do this, even after, let's say, a stroke or a brain injury, TBI, is the best indication we have of pre-injury intelligence. Random and fun. So they do that, and then you give them words to spell, you give them the math problems, and you give them things. And it's quick to give. I want to say it maybe took like 45 minutes to give, or some of these tests will be like 3 hours. And you get pretty good answers right away that help you out. Spelling and math can actually be given in a group. So if you wanted to test a bunch of kids at once, you could. but you have to obviously like do the reading individually, because once they've heard another kid read them, they're like, well, I know how that word sounds now, right? And you can use it for ages 5 to 75. It's got an internal consistency reliability in the 0.9 range. And it's got good content validity and evidence of construct and criterion related validity. So, woohoo. All right, the next one I'm going to talk about is the Key Math 3. And I thought I had a version of this, but I don't, but I can talk about it. So this is a math-specific diagnostic test. There is a math-specific learning disability. It's called dyscalculia. A lot of people kind of only know about dyslexia, but dyscalculia is a thing. It profoundly affects people to the point that like they struggle not only in their math classes, but let's say, you know, the SAT, things like that. It assesses the student's knowledge and understanding of basic mathematics and provides diagnostic information. K to 9, or based on your cognitive ability. So if you're 21 years old, but your mental ability is that of a 6-year-old, right? You can take this. So it's a comprehensive test to really drill down on, is this person having a learning disability in math? So if you took them through the RAT and they struggled on the math section, you might give this instead. It takes 30 to 90 minutes. And again, good reliability in the 0.9 range and evidence of content and concurrent validity. All right, the Peabody Individual Achievement Test. Oh, I do have that one. So this is a broad academic screening for anyone K-12. It does have good reliability estimates, has good validity as well. And so this one is broken into sections. So this first volume is reading recognition. And so what I love about these, and we'll see this more when we look at the intelligence test next week, is that, so you do this like this. So the client sees this, and you see the instructions. And so on this, it says, before administering this, introduce to the subject, the test to the subject by reading aloud the following paragraph. You and I are going to spend a little time together working on some questions and problems. Most young people find them interesting and enjoy working on them. I'm skeptical personally, but cool, right? And so it just has exactly what you're supposed to do, exactly what you're supposed to say for standardization. So let's start with some general information questions. I want to find out how much you know about the world in which we live. I'm going to give you some questions, and I want you to give me answers to them. Give me the best answers you can. Here's your first question. Where are your fingers? Or what do we wear on our feet? And again, those are going to get harder as you kind of flip through those. What do an oboe, a clarinet, and a bassoon have in common? They're all woodwind instruments, right? Not something a kindergartner might know. In golf and tennis, what's the difference between a professional and an amateur? Things along those lines. And then when there are visual things, what will happen is they're here and your instructions are still here. So the participant sees the material and you say, see this, find another one down here. And this is a sample one, so everybody's like, there it is, right? But they get harder as you go along, right? Words, a little more complex, things along those lines. And again, different areas. So this next one is all reading comprehension. So there are sentences they read. There are questions that you'll ask them. Like what actually happened in the story, or what order should these go in? And then there's a whole set of mathematics. And which of these numbers is between 728 and 836? Again, they see that visual information. Look at the 4 groups of ducks. Which group can be divided into 2 groups containing the exact same number of ducks? Things like that. And then you get down to written expression and spelling. And here's some things where you ask them, you know, the picture has a moon and a star. What's the word star? And lots of those, that's all the spelling, lots of spelling. Not even joking, there's like 100 pages of spelling. And you do something pretty simple. Point to the letter O on the subject plate. Make one just like this. Make it right here. And then you get to full words. And then look at this picture. What I want you to do is write a story about it. Just write an interesting story about the people and things in the picture. Use your imagination. And then you give them 20 minutes to do it. And the rat has something like that as well, if I'm recalling correctly. So, yeah. Something that keeps you on track, them involved, right? And you can do, obviously, different levels with it. All right, so I do have a bias. Who knew? Okay. So the Wechsler Individual Achievement Test. What is beautiful about this one is it's actually made to go with the Wechsler intelligence scales we're going to learn about next week. So the cool thing is you can give someone the intelligence test, and then you give them this achievement test, and you can compare their scores directly. And it tells you, based on the intelligence test, they should be doing just fine in math. But the achievement test is showing they're struggling. So it's like a really simple, clear-cut way to say, this person is struggling in this area. So there are various materials here. This booklet is what you use to keep track of all the scores as you go through. And again, it has lots of instructions for you, things along those lines. And then there are various things here. The Wyatt has some fun. So like the rat, it has a word card that you read. Starts with things like cow and sky. Gets to things like vicissitude, right? But it also has something called a pseudo word card. These are not words, but the idea is, can you sound them out to make them sound like a word? Ick, seb, droy, unfrauding. I feel like that should be a word. Preambuteric. I don't actually know if that's how you pronounce that one. Right? So again, getting beyond the words themselves, can you just read something new that you encounter? So, this also, similar to the Piatt's, has a stimulus book, and very similar. It has part that you would see and part that your participant would see. And this one's even better because it just folds up open for you. Okay. So various things that you do here. Questions you ask. How many different ways are there to arrange 4 books on a shelf? Things like some math skills. Very basic things. So this is 2-sided, which is lovely. Saving some money, saving some trees. There's a whole book that shows you how to score it. These are the passages that you have to read. And then this is the examiner's manual, which includes physical media of the manual as well. It's kind of funny. Probably one of those is also the scoring software, which is wonderful. You have to pay a little extra for it, but let me tell you, it saves you a lot of time. Oh, I know. Flip that right back in. There we go. All right, so that's the Wyatt. And so you can see there's reading various tests, word reading, numerical operations, reading comprehension, the spelling, the pseudo words I showed you. Then there's math reasoning, written expression, learning comprehension, and oral expression. And I put a link to a really nice reference here if anyone wants to know more about the Wyatt. And this shows you what there's different things map onto, what we're testing with them. So mathematics, math fluency, written expression, reading comprehension, and various language and reading skills. Another one is the Woodcock-Johnson. And this is designed to facilitate a broad range of tailored and comprehensive assessments. Some of these are more intelligence-y, and some of these are more diagnostic. So they now go from kindergarten, K.0 means the start of kindergarten, to university graduate students. So this is like the most comprehensive age range. You can diagnose learning disabilities, determine learning variations, plan educational programs, plan individual programs, assess growth, provide psychometric training, and provide guidance in educational settings. And you can also use it to do research as well. And some people use it for that. I just thought that it's so big, it comes in a rolling backpack. We don't want you to hurt yourself carrying this. All right, there's also this section called readiness tests. And so these are helpful in determining whether a child is ready to move on to the next level, and it's usually kindergarten or first grade. There are some problems with this, however. Kids at this age, their cognitive functioning changes really rapidly. I am seeing this right now. My daughter is 5 and in kindergarten, and it amazes us what she comes out with. It's like, wait, how do you know that, right? So they are really learning and like sponges, so they're soaking everything up. Like a lot of the other tests, unfortunately, these have some cross-cultural biases. And not surprisingly, when English is their second language, kids won't do as well. So there's something called the kindergarten readiness test. Actually, if I'm recalling correctly, yeah, there are 2 different tests called the kindergarten readiness test. So like, be more creative with your titles, guys. So this is one specifically by Anderholzer and Kearney. And so this is 6 areas: vocab, identifying letters, visual discrimination, phonemic awareness, knowing like what the sounds of letters are, comprehension and interpretation, and mathematical knowledge, which at this point is probably like numbers, maybe some addition, right? It also gives you an overall score for readiness. And it's okay reliability, questionable validity. And then there is the Larson and Vitale kindergarten readiness test. Again, be more creative with your titles, guys. This one is much shorter, only 15 to 20 minutes to take it, and ages 4 to 6. You're looking at awareness and interactions with environment, judgment and reasoning and problem solving, numerical awareness, visual and fine motor coordination, and auditory attention span and concentration. This one, it's not that there's not good reliability or validity, there's just not data on reliability and validity. So we don't know. Problematic, right? Okay, there's the Metropolitan Readiness Test, and we're on the 6th edition of that, the MRT6. And it assesses beginning educational skills for preschoolers, kindergartners, and first graders. So there's level 1, and it looks at literacy developed for preschoolers and beginning kindergartners. Then level 2 assesses reading and math for so kindergarten through beginning first graders. It's longer. It takes 80 to 100 minutes to administer. I cannot imagine getting someone in the 4 to 6 range to sit for 80 to 100 minutes, something like this. I'm sure there are kids that would. My daughter would be up and around probably. Reliability is good, the 0.90s for the composite, but each subtest not as much. And some question its validity. So in general, these kindergarten readiness tests, probably not the best psychometrics. Do we really need them? Questionable. There's also this Gesell developmental observation revised. And so this assesses the whole child, so not just academics, but also their personal and social skills, neurological and motor development, language development, and adaptive behavior. This was made by a guy named Arnold Gesell, shockingly. And he spent years examining the normal development of children. And as far as Gesell was concerned, achievement was more than how one scores on reading or math. So he would sort of question everything we've talked about to this point, basically. Although this is a lovely sentiment, his test still has questionable reliability and validity. So again, readiness test just from a psychometric perspective, not great. Next, we're going to talk about these cognitive ability tests. And these are used to assess what an individual is capable of doing, but they're not intelligence tests. They often look more like achievement tests, but they measure broad content areas. They're good for identifying students who are not succeeding in school, again, maybe due to learning disabilities, but also motivation issues, problems at home or school, issues with self-esteem. So we have a bunch of different examples of these too. So we have the OLSAT, or the Otis Lennon School Ability Test, to the 8th edition on that. This is a K through 12 test. It assesses things like abstract thinking and reasoning skills, and there are both verbal and nonverbal sections. You can give this in a large group format. Takes about an hour to an hour 15, so like a Wesleyan class period. And you get this thing called the AAC, the Achievement Ability Index. It's how students are doing compared to their potential. So the content validity cracks me up. Each user must determine if the content fits the population they are testing. Like the biggest BS I've ever heard, right? Sure, good job, right? But their reliability is high for their composites, but just like some of the other tests we just talked about, lower for those subscales. The COG-AT is one that is more well known, and it's constructed using two different models of intelligence. So Cattell came up with this idea of fluid versus crystallized intelligence. Crystallized intelligence is what we know, what we learn in school, facts, things like that. And fluid intelligence is your ability to think on your feet, learn from things, solve a new problem that's given to you. And then Vernon has a hierarchy of intelligence, and that's also incorporated here. So there's verbal, quantitative, nonverbal ability, and a composite score. They're pretty close to IQ scores, but they had to be different. So the mean is 100, but your standard deviation is 16 instead of 15 because we're different. It's a little absurd, right? Good reliability, 0.8s to 0.9s. It offers a rationale for content validity, but it's hard to defend this type of test because it's measuring the future, but it does have good concurrent validity. All right, next we're going to get to some that you yourselves may have taken and that we've talked about just in terms of their scoring, the ACT. So this is designed to assess educational development and your ability to complete college level work. And so this one's pretty popular. I think the SAT has probably taken more. I liked the ACT better. I felt like it actually measured what I knew instead of how well I took a test. It does English, math, reading, and science. Your scores range from 1 to 36. And the mean for students who go to college is about 21. And the composite score has a good reliability estimate, 0.96. And it's about 0.43 with first year GPA, so pretty good, but below the toss of a coin, if you think about it that way, right? And then the SAT. And I think I mentioned this earlier, the name of the SAT has changed several times. At one point, they were like, it doesn't even stand for anything, it's just the SAT. So I don't even know what it stands for anymore, but it used to be like Scholastic Achievement Test. It measures reading, math, and writing. Scores from 200 to 800, and then they compare the means to this group in 1990 when they set the mean at 500. The percentile score compares the examinees with other people who have taken it in the past 3 years. You get your writing score from 1 to 6 by 2 or 3 evaluators who read it. Reliability is pretty good, low 0.9s. And similar to the ACT in terms of predicted validity. All right, so then when you want to go to grad school, you get to take the SAT grad school revision. I mean, that's what it felt like to me. It felt like kind of the same thing. And it's called the GRE, the Graduate Record Examination. And we're talking first about the general test, and then we'll talk about the subject test. The general test has verbal reasoning, quantitative reasoning, and analytical writing. Oh, look, it's reading, math, and writing. Same thing. Same scoring metric, 200 to 800, although they changed this a couple years ago to something really weird, and then I think they changed it back. But I don't know what the scoring on this now is. It does have a floating mean and standard deviation, whatever the heck that means. And it compares, just like the SAT, students who took the test in recent years. Analytical rating by 2 or 3 evaluators. And then it has moderate reliability and moderate validity. So yeah, this was what they did in 2017 to 2020, is that they put the means sort of, again, floating, but nowhere near the SAT rubric. And so like when students started telling me what their GRE scores, I was like, I don't know what that means. You know, it's also subject tests, and what I always tell my advisees is if you're applying to grad school, see if they even require the GRE. A lot of places don't now. But B, especially check before you take a subject test, because I think I applied to 6 grad schools and I think only like 2 required the subject test, so it's certainly worth looking at. But there are subtests in biochem, cell and molecular bio, just overall bio, chem, computer science, English literature, math, physics, and there is a psychology one. Scores range between 200 and 19. Oh, yeah, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just like wondering, you said that some colleges don't make you do like a GRE.
Mm-hmm.
Are they look at your SAT scores then, or are they gonna look at like your grades?
They look at your grades. They usually have you write like an essay or a cover letter. And they look at like the classes you've taken in letters of record.
Okay.
Yeah. And like, even for places that require the GRE, they basically just use it as a cutoff score, is my understanding. Like if you score above this, we'll look at your application. If you're below that, we're not gonna bother. Right? But so for example, especially during COVID when everyone made GRE optional because no one could go take it, places that would typically get like 300 applications a year started getting thousands. And so like in those situations, those cutoffs become important, but then they didn't have them. So I don't know how they evaluated it, maybe GPA or something, right? But yeah, for grad school in particular, I think good colleges do this too. They kind of look at your whole package, right? Of like, what are other people saying about you, right? How well are you writing and whatever they have you write for them, and then how do you do in college overall? Yeah. And some grad schools will also have you come for an interview. So like a lot of clinical PhD programs will do that. because they want to see like, can you person, right? Do you know how to be a person? Because you're going to be working with clients. It's really funny. My grad advisor, after I graduated, one of her classes she picked up was they started a med school, and she had a class that, like, I forget what the actual name is, but it was basically, she's like, my goal is to teach these med students how to be people, like how to have good bedside manner, basically. So they want to kind of make sure, like, are you going to be all right? Or can we at least train you to be all right? So everyone's awkward when they start doing therapy, to be perfectly honest. Because it's scary. You're like responsible for someone's mental health, right? But yeah, good question. And the validities here and the reliabilities aren't great. Average correlation with grad grades is 0.45, which again is on par with like SAT and things like that. So again, they're often using them as like this cutoff. Some places will use what's called the Miller Analogy Test. And this is 120 analogies that measure your ability to recognize relationships between ideas, your fluency in the English language, and your general knowledge of the humanities, natural sciences, math, and social sciences. 0.27 with graduate GPA. I mean, to me, this just sounds like the analogies on the SAT on crack, and those were like my least favorite part of the SAT, where it's like, this is to this, and this is to one. And you're like, dude, I don't know. What are you thinking about? I really should have taken an SAT prep course at some point, probably. Then there's the more specific ones we know, right? The LSAT for law school. It tests reading comprehension, analytical reasoning, logical reasoning, and you do writing on it as well. Predictive validity, again, not super great. 0.47 when you combine with like college GPA. The MCAT is for med school, and this is a doozy. I remember some of my friends were applying to med school, and this thing is like 8 hours long. Yeah, it just like was like, no, thank you. So it assesses physical science, biological sciences, verbal reasoning, writing, and I believe there's now like an ethical section as well. And that's one of the reasons why Dr. Holtgren teaches a medical ethics course. Is like, not only are people interested in it, but it helps people prep for the MCAT. I don't know who's going to teach that when he retires. Be interesting to see. I know, he's been here 55 years. He's basically been here since Virginia Wesleyan was Virginia Wesleyan. So you score 1 to 15. The writing is J to T. Who comes up with this stuff? I don't know. There seems to be some predictive validity. More research is needed. Again, with med school, they're going to do something more comprehensive. You have letters of rec. You have an essay, right? They look at your experiences. So I know for a while, I was considering going to veterinary school, which is a lot like med school, and you learn a bunch of different types of anatomy, right? And one of the things they look at is like the number of hours you worked with animals, right? So I worked at a vet office for a couple of years. So what about helpers, right? School counselors, school psychologists, learning disability specialists, and school social workers, they're members of the school's special ed team. So the school psychologists and learning disability specialists are your testing experts. They'll assess for learning problems. Now, that being said, there are also people who are independent of the school system. So Peg Jensen, who used to adjunct for us, she has a private practice and rents space from Chesapeake Bay Academy. And so like she's when people want a second opinion, they'll go to her. Clinical and counseling psychologists can do additional assessments or act as that second opinion. So Peg is a clinical psychologist. School counselors often only test school counselors are often the only testing expert permanently in-house in the school. The way this is translated into my notes is like word salad. So I was like, what is going on? Am I having a psychotic break? No, it's just horribly written. Okay. They can consult with teachers and disaggregate data to find students who are having learning problems. And then licensed professionals sometimes need to consult with schools about their clients. So for example, if your kid is in special ed, does fall somewhere on the autism spectrum, you might work with someone outside the school system for therapy, things along those lines. But sometimes those folks go into the schools to observe the kiddos to see how they're doing in the classroom. So what are the downsides of educational assessments? The teachers have to teach to the test, right? That's miserable. No one likes doing that. They're not allowed to be as creative as they would be. And sometimes you get really stupid things they're going to test on, right? Like, I don't know if anyone saw the thing out of Florida when they were like, one of the things teachers have to teach about slavery is that slaves learned vital skills that helped them when they were freed. And everyone was like, excuse me? Right? So that can be frustrating for the teachers. It can lead to labeling, and we know that labeling can be stigmatizing sometimes. And some tests are a mechanism for the majority of children to move ahead, and then children who come from ethnic minorities are often the ones held back. Testing can also cause competition and peer pressure. So I went to a private school for elementary school, and I remember when our, like, whatever the heck the Indiana version of the MEP was or whatever, people would be like, how'd you score? What was your percentile? In third grade, like, who cares, right? But you get into this competitiveness. And so some final thoughts about this. There are some upsides. Again, the biggest thing is finding those kiddos who are performing poorly and trying to help them. Identifying the kiddos with learning problems, accurately place them in a grade level, right? This can help us determine, does the kid need to skip a grade to stay, engaged? And help kids identify what they're good at and weak areas that they can also focus on. Alrighty. So what we have now, and for those of you still hanging with me on Zoom, love that, thank you. If you go to Blackboard, these are posted under assignments, under the GRE assignment. So what we have now, I have a couple other quick tests that aren't on our PowerPoint, but I have a children's achievement test and a test of early reading ability, if anyone wants to come and look at those later. But what I have are some GRE questions from the website. I didn't come up with these. And like I said, what I'll have you do is just try these on yourself. See how well you do. You can even guess. And then once you work through them, and do this one individually, since it's supposed to be about sort of how you're doing. But then I do have answers. Y'all can score them either here or score them for yourself over the next couple weeks. And I would say don't overthink them. I'm not going to collect